I used to be just like you. I was addicted to social media and short form content. But slowly I've started to eradicate that addiction. Whilst I'm not perfect, I still have Snapchat and I still occasionally catch myself on there. And I know it's a cope. But apart from that, I pretty much eradicated short form content. And the main reason I deleted all these apps was to achieve the one goal which I have achieved: fix my attention span. There were other goals and objectives I planned to achieve off of it, and I have achieved them, but this was the most important one. It was to fix my attention span. I can now read a book, which I haven't been able to do. I hadn't been able to do since I got my phone when I was around 13 years old. So it's been around 3 years. 2-3 years. And I was probably a late one to get my phone, so I imagine a lot of you have been using these apps for a lot longer than I have. There's something uniquely beautiful about being able to sit down and just listen and pay attention and actually know that you remember what is being said. When you're consuming this short form content, you're not going to be able to do that. When you fry your dopamine receptors, it leaves your mind in this foggy state where it feels like you're trying really hard and you're just drudging through the mud and you can't get a clear focus. So many opportunities will pass by for those who are unable to pay attention. If you look at the grades of people in your classes that use TikTok for several hours of the day, there's a pretty clear correlation. The more people use TikTok, the less they do well. And of course there are exceptions. There are always exceptions. There are always going to be intelligent people that can do the bare minimum to get a good grade. Especially how school works in my country for grades, but I'm not going to get into that. You don't need to do a lot. But that doesn't make you an excellent student. It doesn't make you actually understand the content. And I noticed how much of an improvement my grades got after I stopped using short form content, specifically Instagram, since I deleted TikTok ages ago. I stopped using Instagram. And in the second half of the year, my grades were pretty much just the top grade I could get. I had an incredible academic comeback. And people were shocked. People were shocked that I'd managed to get the grades that I needed to get an endorsement before exams even happened. And it was all because I changed what I consumed and I improved my mental health. I'm going to go into changing what I consume. I stopped watching content from unintelligent people. I stopped watching videos that were merely entertainment, and I started watching and learning from educated people, from intelligent people, the people that had success that I wanted. And it's no wonder this works, because if you're watching content from unintelligent people, you're subconsciously gonna be more unintelligent. You're gonna make yourself more unintelligent than you actually are. But if you watch content from intelligent people, then you're just gonna become more intelligent because they're teaching you things and you're learning things. The change in grades seemed like it happened overnight, but it was really just persistence. Initially, at the start of the year, I couldn't really read books. I could read them, but I would easily get bored and it would take me forever. I'd read the same line over and over again quite often, but I kept persisting, I kept on reading, and slowly throughout the year, reading became easier and easier and easier. What I'm saying is I wasn't able to just delete short form content. I wasn't able to just delete TikTok and Instagram and just pick up a book and just be able to read it. It took time. It took me time to change the way I consume, because think about it, I'd been using these platforms for years. They were part of my day for years. So think about how much my dopamine receptors had been fried over those years. They needed to come back to baseline. It was going to take time, because your brain will chase whichever dopamine is the easiest. And when you've got social media, it's so easy to get dopamine from. So it just fries your brain receptors because it goes above and then it drops below baseline. So your dopamine is so low once you quit social media and short form content, because you've fried it. And you've slowly got to let it just come up by doing things that are more demanding, that give you better dopamine, delayed gratification, such as going to the gym. It's delayed gratification. Doesn't feel good while you're doing it, but you get a dopamine spike after, and that increases your baseline. So you have to just try to do these things, because they'll feel hard, but they'll increase your baseline at the end. So every single time you go up, your baseline goes up, and your dopamine gets closer to where it's meant to be. Bear in mind, the time is varying. It took me a couple of months maybe, but I wasn't the guy that was spending 6 hours a day scrolling on TikTok. I still spent quite a lot of time watching YouTube instead, which, whilst it wasn't good, it was watching entertainment. It was still long form, so it wasn't flashing all over the place. It was still highly edited, but it wasn't constantly changing. It was one context. So my brain wasn't as fried as it could have been. So it'll vary in time how long it takes you to switch to educational content and longer form versions of learning. But you'll get there if you keep persisting. It's the same idea as progressive overload. You don't expect the 60 kilogram skinny fat boy to go into the gym and be able to bench 60 kgs straight away. Even if he does it every single day, he goes into the gym and he tries to bench 60 kgs. He does it for a year. Every day, he won't lift it. But if he starts out where he can lift it, so he starts with lower weight and he goes every single day, slowly he's going to get stronger and stronger, and he will eventually be able to do 60 kgs. It might even be within less than a year. So it will take time. That's the problem. We want results now, but it will take time. So you've got to start out slow. You've got to start out with just a little bit. You've got to start out reading 1 page, then 2 pages, and increase how much you're reading, or start out listening to a podcast for 5 minutes and then increasing the amount of time you're listening to it. Because it will take time for you to get used to it. All the content you should consume should be educational, and not for the sake of entertainment. It should be actually educational, where you're learning from it. Basically, all the content you should consume should be from reading books, watching long form videos, and watching and listening to podcasts. That should be where you're learning from. These are generally the places where you learn the most information from. Of course, there's lectures and teachings, but online, these are where you'll mostly find educational resources. The content you consume should always be noteworthy. What do I mean by this? Well, if you're consuming content, you should aim to listen to content that you want to take notes from. Like this, I've got this notebook here. And basically, I just put wee notes in it. I mean, this is my carry-all, but if I'm listening to a podcast or something, I'll make sure I've got this on me so I can just write things down. And I can just keep track and just remember things. I do sometimes if I'm listening to like a full class or something, I'll just get a refill pad out and I'll use that and take notes from that. But this is what I use to track things throughout the day. If I'm listening to a podcast on something, I'll use that because it just means I remember what I'm learning. You don't need a fancy system. You don't need nice fancy notebook and an expensive pen, nice note-taking paper. Look at this. It's literally like 20 cents. Don't overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be complicated. That's what many beginners do. They complicate things. Even I did this. They try and overcomplicate things. Just do the basics. You don't need to complicate it. Make it easy for yourself. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be practical. You should aim to have a few content creators that are your go-tos. The people that you consume as much of your content as possible. Because you don't want to be jumping all over the place from different person to different person. You should consume content from people that you resonate with. You don't want to have too many people. One of mine that I really consume quite a bit of content from was Andrew Huberman. And the rule of 5 applies here. The rule of the 5 friends you have, your 5 closest friends, you'll be the average of them. That can apply to the people that you follow, the people that you watch. Because think about it, if you're watching unintelligent content creators and you're watching it for entertainment purposes, you're going to become more unintelligent. But if you're making the people that you spend the most time with intelligent people, such as Andrew Huberman, you're going to become more intelligent. So keep it sort of tight. Keep the people that you follow limited. The people that you watch their content, keep it limited to the people that you want to be like, the success that you want to have. Because we're in an era where you can have one of those people be the likes of an Andrew Huberman, who you might never meet in real life, but you have the opportunity to now that we have the internet. And I know it's not the same as a real friendship, but it still works. One thing you might want to do with this longer form content is watch certain parts of it over again. Specifically with a podcast, you might want to watch certain parts of it over again, but with shorter things, sort of like YouTube videos, you might want to watch the whole thing over again, because sometimes you don't fully grasp the concepts that are being explained on the first listen. This is why I often look back through books, or I'll get my books and I'll highlight them so I can go back through them, because it means I can actually relearn ideas that I already knew, but they sort of went to the back of my head. Because a lot of learning is just remembering what you've learned. You know a lot of things, especially after you start listening to this content for a while. So you need to just remember them, because there's a lot of things that you'll listen to that are actually helpful that you won't apply. And without being reminded, you won't have any chance of doing it. Don't be afraid to highlight your books if you have your own self-help books or educational books. And I know it makes you cringe, and it made me cringe too when I started, but as you do it more, it's just normal. And it's your book. No one else has to see it. It's just your book that you're taking the notes to help you. So if you highlight on it and write notes on it, then who cares? No one else has to see it. This is the only thing I do like having a system for. I like to just leave symbols that I can go back to and look at and know what they're meaning. So I have like this symbol that I have for the main idea of a chapter or something, and then I have a symbol that I can go back so I can write notes on it, or I can use it in videos or other things like that. And then I have just like a symbol for something that I find interesting, question marks that I use if like I'm unsure on a topic or a word and I don't understand it. I'll go look it up. It's just simple wee symbols. It's not complex, but it is helpful for that. That's the only thing I will allow you to have a system on. But don't be afraid to mark up your books. It's literally just the same as taking notes, but you're just doing it in the book instead. So keep persisting with this long form content thing. It won't feel like it works to begin with. It will take time. So give it the time that it needs. Give it the time to solidify itself as a habit that you do. And you will start to see your attention span improve, and you will start to become more intelligent. And don't we all want that? I love you all. Now stop consuming and go create.